I was lucky enough not long ago to interview Bill McKibben for this special. He's an author of a number of different books, environmentalist, started up 350.org. He has been sounding the alarm on climate change longer than almost anyone. And here we are talking about what Earth Day means and other issues as well. We're speaking with Bill McKibben, environmentalist, founder of 350.org and author of Falter. Has the human game begun to play itself out? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, and happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Always glad to talk to you. And I wanted to start off by asking you a question about your new book. So is humanity in its end game? And what are the trends that you are looking at when making that determination?
The book actually talks about several things, artificial intelligence and human genetic engineering. But the longest section is about climate change. This book marks 30 years since I wrote the original book on the topic, a book called The End of Nature. And I'm afraid that the news is mostly not good. What was a threat 30 years ago, still something of an abstraction, is now the daily horror for people all over this planet. Not a day goes by when there's not a record fire, a record flood, or record drought someplace on planet Earth, all of them driven by this devil's brew of greenhouse gases that we have stuck into the atmosphere. And so, there's plenty to be scared of. On Earth Day, and really every day, one has a certain kind of obligation, if not towards optimism, then at least towards engagement. And there are reasons to think that we still can stave off the worst. The engineers have done their job. The price of a solar panel is a tenth what it was a decade ago. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to solve this problem, if we could break the political power of the fossil fuel industry, we probably could.
So there you talked a little bit about some of the bad news, certainly the terrible extreme weather events and fires and all of that we have experienced over the past year and continue to, and we have an anticipation of some more terrible weather coming to the Midwest actually right now. I'm curious, on a number of different environmental issues and environmental concerns, compared to a year ago, are there areas where you feel like we have made progress, and what are some of the areas where you feel like we've been moving in the wrong direction?
Well, I think in many ways we're in a climate moment right now. Some things happened in the last year, probably 3 or 4 things, that have, I think, really gotten Americans thinking in a deeper, more profound way about this great crisis. One of them was the scientific reports, like the ones from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They upped the level of urgency by putting a date on things. They said if we hadn't made transformational change by 2030, we'd be too far behind to ever catch up with physics. Another were the unbelievable pictures from the fires in California. I mean, literally a city called Paradise turned into hell inside half an hour. And people watched that and internalized it. People could imagine being trapped in their car trying to flee down a narrow road. Then we had the remarkable courage demonstrated by the young people from the Sunrise Movement and by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as they launched the Green New Deal. Its coming out party was a sit-in at Speaker Pelosi's office. It's not often that a junior congresswoman joins in that kind of demonstration, but when she did, she helped light this spark. And it's not confined to the US. As you know, around the world, we've seen remarkable uprising from 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds, all following this remarkable Swedish schoolgirl, Greta Thunberg, as she's gone on strike, disrupting education as usual. The question is now whether the rest of us will follow her and figure out ways to disrupt business as usual, because it's really, if you think about it, business that's as usual that's sort of doing us in.
So I certainly agree that some of the most inspirational moments in the past year or so have been those protests initially when AOC joined in, and watching the Sunrise Movement continue to exceed now that they're doing their tour across the nation. I've also seen the response from the right and from some centrists as well to the Green New Deal has often, in my view, been incredibly disingenuous, divorced from the facts. And so we seem to be arguing about very different things. I'm curious, from your point of view, as someone who's been writing and talking about these issues for so long, how do you think that environmentalists and politicians and regular people should be talking about climate change and the Green New Deal to make it as likely as possible that we will go in the right direction?
So I think the thing to get across that's important about the Green New Deal is that it's the first legislative proposal that addresses climate change on the same scale as climate change. That is, it's not a small Band-Aid stuck on a gaping wound. It's an actual tourniquet to apply to a gaping wound. It obviously is going to be big and hard and complicated to do. That's because we've waited so long to do anything.
And as we're recording this, of course, we're I guess it's perpetual, the election season in the U.S. But right now we're in the Democratic primary, part of that election cycle. I know that a lot of people are obviously very anxious about what's going to happen in 2020. There's a lot on the line. Do you think that it's fair to say that the future of our environment and our fight against climate change is potentially the biggest thing that will be determined by 2020?
Clearly, it's going to be an absolutely core issue this time around, at least on the Democratic side. And I think that the Democrat, whoever wins, understands that it's a great vulnerability that Trump is such a buffoon and an oaf on climate change.
Yeah, I mean, it is useful sometimes to have as president. Like, I hadn't known that wind turbines cause cancer, and thankfully I was able to learn that from the president.
Now you know. Now you know.
Exactly.
Don't worry about cigarettes, but stay away from wind turbines.
Exactly. Well, Bill, we want to thank you for joining us and giving your perspective as someone who has about as much credibility on these issues as anyone in the planet. We very much appreciate you joining us. And I wanted to plug again the new book, Falter: Has the Human Game Begun to Play Itself Out? So, Bill McKibben, thank you for joining us.
Take care, man.
Right, that was great. Yeah. So a couple of things about that. So in response to the intelligent things that scientists and Bill McKibben, et cetera, say, the Republicans have spread this propaganda throughout the internet and through mainstream media as well. Green New Deal costs $93 trillion. Now, it's preposterous. It was by a right-wing so-called think tank. And over 80 trillion of that it was based on universal basic income, which doesn't have anything to do with climate change or the core proposals of the Green New Deal. So as we talk about like big change that's necessary, that's good, but the Republicans then took that big change, kidnapped it, and said, oh, it's gonna cost $93 trillion. And it's not, it's just a made up number. But now and then there we go back again into nonsense debates about things that aren't true.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we're ever gonna get past that. But one thing I know for sure is, I'm gonna go back to this theme because it's true. We're having conversations as I'm watching the interview. That's the main thing I'm getting out of it, about trying to convince people. But guys, we already have convinced people. The over 60% of the country is on our side on this issue. In fact, when you say Green New Deal and you explain what's in it, over 80% of the country is on our side. The problem isn't winning hearts and minds. The problem is winning over corrupt politicians.
Yeah, look, I generally agree. I think that the most important people that haven't been won over yet are the most powerful people, unfortunately, stopping us from doing something about this. I think that the hope that drives trying to turn regular voters over to our side is that then they might, because almost all of them are Republicans at this point, then they might put pressure on their politicians.
It's not gonna happen. Not with Fox News doing propaganda 24/7, citing nonsense numbers like 93 trillion every day, 10 times a day. Besides which, it doesn't matter, even if they did. 97% of the country agrees that we should have federal background checks on guns. What happened? Did the Republican voters put pressure on the Republican politicians? No, Republican politicians got a check and then we're done with it. We don't have it.
I don't know. In that example though, on the other side, on the gun issue, we have been trying to convince people that it's not some sort of essential part of being an American that you have to have free, unregulated access to guns. And people seem to have moved in our direction. Maybe we should keep pushing.
No, I mean, yeah, we got 97%, and we still don't have laws that provide federal background checks.
Okay.
So, no, man, we have to pass that amendment right away. wolf-pack.com.
Yeah.
It's just a reality.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.